Like that, I'm doomed. Hi, good morning, and looking forward to working with you for the next hour or so. We're going to cover a couple of what I call major areas that are important to ensure that you get agreement. And I'm just curious from yesterday's work and what you know about mediation, where do you see a couple of potential big pitfalls if you don't get agreement? Where do you see some of the biggest risk areas for not getting agreement? You want to just share your thoughts on that? Where is it, if you don't get agreement, where do you think a couple of the major reasons are for that? Yeah?
Possibly aggravating an already bad situation.
Okay, aggravating a bad situation. Other thoughts? Yeah, sure. What else? Yeah?
When someone doesn't have anything that they want.
Yeah, if you're not clear what somebody wants and you're not clear what their needs are and what their issues are, it's very difficult to get solutions. And in my experience, not understanding the issues and needs, the real needs of people, makes it very difficult to get a permanent solution on the table, which is win-win. A corollary to that is if you don't know the issues, it's very difficult to develop good solutions. And part of developing good solutions is coming up with creative options to the issues that you identify. So the two things we're going to focus on in the next hour is this business about understanding real needs and this business around coming up with creative solutions to the needs that you come up with. Now, to get us into it and set the stage, I'd like 2 volunteers, please. 2 people to volunteer, and you know in the Army way, if I don't get volunteers, my eyes focus on somebody. Yes, your name? Your first name?
Moretta.
Moretta? Okay, I'll try with that, your name. I'll do it phonetically. I'm awful with names. Yes?
Lois.
Lois. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, Moretta and Lois, is I'm going to offer you dollar bills. Okay? And you're going to have 7 opportunities to earn these dollar bills. And I'm going to start with Moretta, and you can offer me, let's say not minimum of 10 cents. Let's make it increments. It'll be 10 cents, 30, 40, 60, but let's not get into pennies. And whoever offers me the most for my dollar will win that round. And you will have 7 rounds to win dollar bills. Okay? Now, Moretta, you're going to start out. How much are you going to offer me for my dollar bill? 20 cents. What are you going to give me, Lois?
35.
35. Let's make it round numbers.
Round numbers.
You make it 40? Or 30?
No, 30.
Okay. What are you going to give me?
40.
40?
60.
60. Okay. How about 80?
80.
80. 90? You give me 90 cents for my dollar bill?
No, I'll give you 100.
100. Give me 110. Sure? 110? $1.10? Okay, Lois. Lois gets it for $1. Okay, you start out, Lois. How much you gonna give me for my dollar bill? You can start anywhere. Round numbers though.
10 cents.
10 cents. What are you gonna give me?
30.
30. What are you gonna give me?
70.
70. What are you gonna give me?
90.
90. How much? Give me a dollar?
$1.
$1.10 again. You give me dollar. Make it $1.20. No? Okay, Lois again. Moretta, how much are you giving me? Third round. 10. What are you gonna give me?
50.
50.
70.
70.
100.
100. 110 again. 110. You sure? Okay, Lois. Round 4. Lois, what are you gonna give me?
Give you 80.
80. Great. What?
100.
You give me $1? $1.10. You got straight. You're
$1.10.
$1.10. Great. Now we're into the swing of things. You give me $1.20. Can I have $1.20? $1.20? No? You sure? Okay, Lois is on a run here. $1.10. Okay, Moretta, how much you giving me?
50.
Lois,
I'll give you the $1.
$1.10. $1.10? Hey, okay, $1.20?
Yeah.
$1.20, $1.30. Sure? Okay, so for $1.20. Okay, round 6, Lois, what are you giving me?
Give you $1.
$1.
Um,
$1.10?
yeah.
Okay, $1.20.
I'll go with $1.20.
$1.30.
Yeah.
$1.40.
You can let her have this one.
You are? Oh, hard. She's a real good buddy. Okay. How much are you going to give me for this?
Um,
Last round. $1.
I'm going to let her have this one too.
Oh, God. Okay, so what do we have here? We have Loretta, you owe me 30 cents, and Lois, you owe me 30 cents. Okay, I like this. Let's do it again. And who wants to participate in our second round? Okay, your name?
Dino Pax.
Dino? And who's going to work with Dino? Yes? Gil. Gil. Dino and Gil. Okay. Think about what's going on. Think about the process. And let's see what's playing out. Dino, what are you going to give me for my buck?
90 cents.
90 cents. How about it, Gil? Nah. No? You sure? Gil gets it for 90. Okay.
No,
Gil,
no,
I'm
Dino
sorry,
did.
Dino. Okay. Yeah. Gil, how much you going to give?
$1.
$1.10.
Cheers.
Sure?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So Gil gets it for $1. Dino, how much?
90.
90.
$1.
$1.10. Sure? Okay, Gil gets it. Gil, how much?
$1.
$1? No? $1.10. You sure? They went $1.10.
I'm going to see them after this.
Okay? Dino, how much?
90.
Gil? 90.
No. $1.
$1? Good. $1.10? Sure? God.
You're going to owe me money.
Okay, Gil. What are you giving me?
$1.
$1.10. You sure? Where did the string? Okay. How much?
90.
90.
$1.
$1.10. Last chance. $1.10. Okay. Well, let's see what we have. Dino gets 10 cents, and Gil, for all his work, it's a draw. Reactions to what's going on? Yes?
Teamwork.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
Say more about that.
No one got it for 30 cents.
What's that?
By you're bidding people out against each other, so they end up owing you money.
Yes.
But by simply backing off and teaming up against you, anyone could have gotten it for 30 cents.
Oh, okay. Other reactions? Yeah.
Dino ran a sharp deal on Gil because he saw how it worked the other time, and by going first, he knew that he was at least going to be able to get. I think my math's not that good, but I think he figured it out pretty quick that he would at least be able to break even.
Oh.
Once he determined that there was no point. The first thing he learned in the first round was going negative. I think the two ladies got coerced or hooked into saying, "Wait a minute, there must be a reason why we're going." You know, you're getting all those bucks, and you even actually said, "Hey, he's getting all the bucks," but he wasn't. He figured this out the second time around.
And so they kind of figured out a scheme. At least they didn't lose money.
Right.
They broke even. Yes.
Lois had a real strong need to win.
Ah.
Eventually, she kind of gave up on it, but I don't think she liked it. And it was only because she realized she was losing money big time.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to follow up with that. Is that it wasn't that Lois was winning money or either of them were winning money. The winning was in winning the agreement. It wasn't the money that they're winning because obviously they're losing the money.
Yeah, that's the way I was looking at it.
I'd like everyone at your table, I'm going to give you 1 minute. I'm going to give you one more crack at doing this. I would like a different strategy where, in fact, the two participants end up with win-win and maximize the opportunity in this situation. We had situation one where the two participants together lost 60 cents. Here they gained plus 10 cents. I'm going to give you 1 minute on what would be a strategy for a win-win for two of the participants. A real win-win. And what would that win-win look like? 1 minute around your table. I want a totally different scenario than this. What would happen?
I guess the last one would have to go to $1. Oh yeah, it's full piano.
Yeah, how do you
We're coming up with a strategy.
Well, no, you can talk about it. I guess when you lose, you can. I give you this.
Hey, let's do it on that, and I'll let you have the next one.
You can even say that when you start. I mean, even in this school of negotiation.
But people didn't know if they needed to win the round or win the month, you know. I don't think that's seriously. I was going to go away from
But since there's a non-number of rounds, one person's going to get an extra round, so you need more than one.
Or people have to go up to $1.
I mean, you might as well wait section. You might as well take that too and get an extra 45.
You don't want the other person to win.
No, but if you can do that.
Well, the ideal situation would be each party getting you know, where I see it is you just compartment.
She alternated with
No, I didn't just all the excess.
Let me stop the action for a moment. I happened over here, the group on my right, with their strategy. So let me have them play it out, and then you can compare it to how you approached it. Can I have two volunteers from my table over here? Your name?
Fred.
Fred? And your name, please?
Victoria.
Victoria. Okay, Fred, we're back into this. I love this because I'm making some money here overall. Fred, how much are you going to give me for my dollar?
10 cents.
10 cents? Okay, Victoria.
Pass.
Pass? You're not going to give me anything for this?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay, Victoria, what are you giving me?
10 cents.
Sure you don't want to start higher? We can save time. Fred?
Pass.
Pass. Oh, wow. Okay, Fred, how much?
10 cents.
Victoria?
Pass.
Pass. Victoria?
10 cents.
Fred?
Pass.
We're going to continue to do this? Okay, how about the last round? You still doing it?
Whose turn is it?
It is Fred's.
I want $1.
You don't want my dollar. This is going to be a tough group, folks. Okay, so what do we have here? We have 90, 80, well, it's 360. They each, no, it's 270. They each got 270. With me on the math? 90 cents here, 90 here, 90 here. Total, they got 540.
You took us to McDonald's, thanks.
Thanks. What was the difference between this round and the other two? Heck of a big difference here in terms of the net. What was your strategy here?
To cooperate.
And how did you go about getting that cooperation?
Splitting it down the middle and figuring out how to deal with the uneven number and what we would do.
And how did you determine your goal?
Get as much money from you as possible.
So you joined together to figure out a way that you both could win? And the way you got that was what? How'd you build trust? I think one of you could have kind of did
Well, you
this.
never asked me at the end what was my bid, and I have to admit that it did dawn on me for a
That's always there, right? Stick it to them. But what were the ingredients? You talked it out, and what were the 2 or 3 ingredients that made this work for you?
You told us, come out with a win-win.
So the mindset was win-win. And to get a win-win mindset, what had to happen here? They had to cooperate. By doing what? Talking. First they had to talk, but what is it they had to agree on up front? Pardon? They had to, one, be willing to give up something. But what else do they have to have even before they give up something?
Trust.
Trust. And how did they build the trust? Right?
By going back and forth.
There was a quid pro quo, a little giving. What else was key to making this thing work?
Figuring out the math.
Figuring out the math.
They were working towards a common goal.
They had a vision. The vision was one around win-win cooperation, and even if I am the common enemy, that's okay because we ended up having them work together. And part of the exercise is a mindset. And this is a heck of a better mindset. 540 is a lot better than 10 cents or giving up 60 cents. But in a real mediation, the dynamic is not a whole lot different because people come in with what kind of mindset? You got 2 people, one on each side of the table. What's their mindset coming in? Win-lose. Absolutely, the mind says, I'm going to figure out some way of sticking it to you. And by the way, I may even stick it to you in a way that I lose. But I think I've won. That's very interesting. I lose to win. And by the way, that happens. There'll be people who experience a little pain just to feel that they stuck you. Now, the name of the game is how do we develop a strategy to get 540? And in fact, this group could have even maximized its earnings even more by doing what?
Splitting up the stuff.
They could have done the last one, 10 cents, and then split 45 cents. So they could have gone even one step further. They didn't quite go all the way in terms of maximizing, but pretty close. Let's talk about how we get there, and that's our discussion for the next 40 minutes. Our role as mediators are to do the kinds of things with the initiator and respondent to get the kind of result that this table got. That is our role. And by the way, the role and our success starts with us as mediators, because quite often we can be our worst enemy. We have got to go in as mediators and have an open mind. Not always easy. You hear one party, you hear the other, and say, oh wow, no way. That person's off the wall. The second you begin doing that, we're in trouble. We have to assume all the parties are contributing. In my own personal experiences, when I have a conflict and differences with others, I'm honest with myself. I'm part of the problem. It's rare that the whole issue is with the other party. And so the assumption is all parties are contributing to the lose-lose. And in the first 2 rounds that we had, both parties were contributing to the situation. And the third is that we set aside our own pet or assumed best solution. Because in reality, many times our solution may have nothing to do with what's important and what's wanted by the party. So to make the mediation work and to get win-win, it starts with us. It starts with your own mindset going in. And I feel pretty confident that if you don't have this mindset, then bias is going to creep in and you may have some difficulty managing the situation. Okay. There are some steps that go into the mediation process, and I have a handout on this, so it'll save you. If you can take this stack and pass it back, and let me walk through this. Step 1, and you began to talk about it yesterday, is your opening statement and how you set the climate. And I only want to make one comment about setting the climate. You talked yesterday, I'm sure, about confidentiality, and you've not seen the people before, and you talk about the process and so forth. there's one point that I think is very important, and that is creating a self-fulfilling prophecy with the parties that they're going to be successful. And a statement that I like to make, and you can use your own style, is I applaud people for coming and being at the table. And I say to them, I really applaud you for being here. It is not easy coming face to face across the table and confronting your issues with people. And my expectation is that because you're here with your good effort and good creative problem solving, we're going to get a solution tonight. Now, when I say that up front, what am I trying to do with the respondent and the initiator? What's my psychology there?
Setting up a win-win.
I am setting up an expectation it's win-win. In fact, there's no other thought in my mind. This is going to be win-win. I can't even envision anything less. And so if you set up that expectation and you applaud them and stroke them for being there, that's beginning to set the climate. And you're beginning to bond them together. That statement bonds the parties there. They already have something in common, and that's that they showed up at the table. This one is really an interesting one. And let me set this up. This is probing, this is uncovering the needs and issues. The story of the two sisters, and they're fighting over an orange, and they split in half. Sister one takes her half of the orange, and she peels it and goes to the den, and she eats the fruit, throws the rind away. Sister two, and you may have read this, she peels her half of the orange, goes to the kitchen, throws the fruit away, and uses the rind to bake a cake. Now, if they had done good probing of each other's needs, what obviously would we have learned? They could have had, one could have had all the orange, and the other all the peel. Of course, if we don't know the needs, we end up with 50-50. Or we end up with 0-0. Or we end up giving me 30 cents and giving me 30 cents. Let me show you a situation. I hope you can appreciate my drawings because I know my colleagues in back love them. This is a library. You knew that. This is the checkout counter. I hope you folks in the site can see it. These are the tables. These, by the way, are windows. And these are chairs, more windows, chairs, more windows, and chairs. We have a man here and a woman here, and suddenly they begin fighting. The man wants the window open all the way, and the woman wants it shut. And the man yanks the window open, the woman yanks it shut, and the librarian comes over, and the librarians can't handle this kind of commotion. And the librarian, in good fashion, says, we're going to split the difference. I'm opening the window halfway. Now, how does the man feel about that? What? He did? He wants it all the way. And how about the woman? Not too happy. Now, if our librarian had done some good probing and stopped the action and said to the man, why do you want the window open? He would have said, you know, I get claustrophobic in a library. I need some air, a lot of air. And if she had asked the woman, why do you want this thing closed? She would say, I just got over the flu. I don't want a draft. Now, knowing that the issues are claustrophobia and flu, what other options open up to you in this environment to meet their needs? Let's get some creative ideas on the table. Yes, please. Okay, we can move the man here, open the window, leave the woman there, keep the window shut. Other options. Anything else we can do? Yeah.
Move them both. Neither one is a victory.
Move both. We're not going to let anyone win by staying here or appear to win. Man, you go here, woman, you go here, and deal with your window the way you want. Any other options? Yes?
Open another window so you get...
Oh, yeah. Maybe we can keep both here, but open the window here, and that might be enough air for the man. You see, the world opens up to us once we understand the issues. But if we just deal with the window position, 1/4 open, 1/2 open, 3/4 open, it's impossible to get a creative solution. That's win-win. And that's the challenge when you're mediating, really understanding issues that then allows the world to open up for solutions. And what happens often is that we try to negotiate an agreement around positions. And this is an important concept. In this example, Party A's position, the man, the window open all the way. Party B's position was the window closed. And as long as we deal with the window open or closed, it's either halfway, 3/4, 1/4, we will not end up with both parties feeling a win-win. It's only when we get off the position and deal with claustrophobia and the flu that we can get a creative solution that gets us off the position and ends up with a win-win. Any question on that? And the real good mediators do not get trapped into trying to develop solutions around positions. Window half open, 3/4 open, 1/4 open. That's what we're looking for in step 2. You're going to have a chance to practice these kinds of things today. Step 3. Couple of big ideas here. Once you know the needs, the real trick is how do you get options on the table to fill the needs? And our best mediators are very creative at getting lots of ideas on the table so that we can effectively mix and match and get solutions. And I would contend that if you don't get a lot of options on the table, you're going to find it much more difficult to get a solution. Let me illustrate this for a moment. Another drawing. I know you were fond of my library. This is my wheelbarrow. I would like for you, stream of consciousness, comment on my wheelbarrow. Anything that comes to mind, just roll it out. Come on, comment. Anything you want to say. I'm not offended. It doesn't look good. What else? Good. We're on a roll.
Handle's not big enough.
What? Handles. Not big enough.
Balance.
Tip over. What else?
Hopper's upside down. Everything falls
Upside down. What else?
Handle's on the wrong side.
Wrong side handle. What else?
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. Now, let me ask you. What was my question? What did I ask you to do?
How do you like my wheelbarrow?
No, did I ask you how I like my wheelbarrow? What did I ask you? I asked you to comment on my wheelbarrow and you beat it up. You 6 negatives. You knocked it out. I didn't ask you to beat it up. Now, when people in a mediation and you got the needs on the table and you ask for an idea, and I'm the respondent and I give an idea, what's the initiator's first inclination going to be? Oh, down, wrong side, upside down, stinky idea. And by the way, then you go back and forth. And then, of course, the respondent gives an idea, and the initiator knocks it down. Then the initiator comes up with an idea, and what's the respondent do? Knocks it down. Because that's the inclination to knock something down. It's our first gut reaction to what's wrong with this thing. Now, if we're being creative, really try. Keep my ego up. What is positive about this thing?
It's a novel wheelbarrow.
Oh, thank you. Novel wheelbarrow. What else is possibly good about
It
this?
has all the parts it needs.
What was that?
It has all the parts
Oh,
it
at least he has the parts. You're giving me a partial concession here. He has parts. What else could be neat and nifty about this wheelbarrow?
You can make it work.
I could. How could you envision that?
I'm not that creative.
Well, I just make sure she's not patronizing me. But I'll give you credit for being positive. What else?
It couldn't have cost too much to make.
Oh, probably pretty cheap. Yeah? What else?
You could make it work with a few adjustments.
Just a few adjustments, okay? There's some hope for it. Any things you can see that really could be nifty in terms of working the way it is?
Especially good for tall people.
Tall people, wonderful. That's what it was designed for. One more crack at something potentially positive. Great for tall people.
It might be self-propelled.
Self-propelled. Self-propelled could be used as an architecture sculpture for your lawn. I mean, a lot of things. But the point is, our first inclination is to beat it up. Now, I have to admit, this wheelbarrow is part of a research study done at the University of Buffalo in a program on creativity. And this wheelbarrow has been shown to lots of other people. And let me show you their reaction. Executives, big executives, 22 negatives to 1 positive. They let the brainstorming go longer. 22 negatives to 1 positive.
What was the positive?
It was probably like, well, it possibly has some uses with a few adjustments. How about the geniuses? The people IQs over, thank you, IQs over 140, really smart ones, 22 ones. What about teachers? You think teachers are better or worse? My wife is an ex-teacher, great naysayer. They are never work. She has 85 reasons why it can't work. What about kids? Much better. They still aren't greatly enthralled with it, but it's 2 to 1. They don't censor as much. So what we're talking about here is stopping the action once you know the needs and getting ideas on the table so we don't have the wheelbarrow dynamic of the negatives coming out. That's the challenge. Now, when you're brainstorming with people, what are the ground rules for brainstorming? Don't criticize. What else? Everything goes. What else? More the better. What else? Anything else?
Suggestions from both sides.
Suggestions from both sides. Dumb ideas are okay. So, in setting this up, once you have the needs of the response initiator and you really have that crystallized, then you can start out with them and say, look, we're going to spend a little time trying to just get some ideas on the table. They don't have to be great. We're looking for quantity. We're not going to judge them, but let's just get a bunch of ideas out that can meet your need, all our needs. Your needs and my needs. And classic brainstorming ground rules. We're going to withhold criticism. And it takes a little coaching because they're going to want to come out and criticize. And you just kind of say, wait a second, hang on. We'll have plenty of chance to evaluate. But we want quantity ideas. We want to build on ideas. You can come up with really crazy stuff. We don't care. But we're going to avoid knocking ideas right up front. Now, I'd like for you to experience brainstorming in a different context just to get the feel for what it is for those of that experience it. And we have another drawing. This, as you know, looking at it, is a drugstore. And here's the checkout. Here's the pharmacy. This is product in the aisles. And that's the magazine racks. The problem is with the magazine racks. What we're experiencing, and by the way, I've asked you to come in and consult with me because you're consultants on store management and efficiency. I'm experiencing theft of my magazines. I'm also experiencing that my Popular Mechanics is with my Playboy, and I want my technical magazines here and my other magazines there. And I'm experiencing my magazines are getting ruined. Either kids are coming in and spilling ice cream on it, or people are leafing through the magazines and ripping pages. So I have got to deal with theft, disorganization, and ruined magazines. Now the challenge for you is this. I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and in 5 minutes I want you to come up with at least 40 ideas on how to help me solve my 3 problems. I don't care if the ideas are absolutely off the wall. We're going to follow the brainstorming guidelines. Now, since I am only one person, I want you to yell out your ideas, but be sure if your idea doesn't get up here, keep screaming it out until I recognize it. Can I have a timekeeper back there? One of my colleagues? Okay, George, tell us go, and then let us know when 5 minutes are up. We're shooting for 40 ideas. Go.
Put sample magazines up there.
Sample magazines. Okay, we're on a roll. Yes.
Wrap the magazines and cellophane.
Cellophane idea. Terrific. Good. What else?
Move the checkout in the middle of the magazine.
Move checkout. Move mags.
Don't sell magazines.
Don't sell mags. Don't sell them. Great. What else? We're on a roll. Great.
Convex mirrors.
Lock them up. Lock up mags. Yes.
Convex mirrors.
Mirrors. All No eating policy. Great.
Put sensors on the magazine.
Sensors.
Put the Playboy by the back.
Playboy. By pharmacy. Okay. What was that?
Post a clerk at the magazine.
Ah, clerks. By tags. Good.
Have magazines reorganized every hour.
Reorg mags. Every hour. Okay.
Label sections in the magazine.
Label sections.
Put signs up so that people don't read the magazines or tear something.
Where do I put them?
By the magazines.
What do I do with them?
Put signs up.
Ah, signs up.
Saying not to.
Don't. Right. Okay.
Disperse magazines throughout the store.
Ah, disperse ideas. Disperse mags throughout the store. Great. What else?
Install a subliminal message system in your store that says don't steal.
Subliminal messages. High-tech idea. Terrific. We're going. What else?
Bar children.
Bar children. Bar old men. Don't sell ice cream. Bar customers.
Put some stuff in the magazine that squirts all over the place.
Oh, great.
A magnetic code on the magazines to trip an alarm.
Magnetic code to trip alarm idea. Great. What else?
Store to a better neighborhood.
What was that?
Move to a better neighborhood.
I got
No old people.
Give them away. Okay, there was still some. Jill, what was your idea?
I said, move to a better neighborhood.
Better neighborhood. Okay.
Have a bouncer.
What was that? A bouncer.
Pitbull.
A bouncer. A pit bull.
Upgrade the neighborhood.
Upgrade. Okay, we're
Upgrade the magazine. Search everyone leaving.
They come in the store.
upgrade mags, and then I heard a search and destroy idea. Great. What else?
Check packages.
Check packages.
Tie their arms together there.
Oh, fun. Tie arms up.
Execute shoplifters.
Execute those shoplifters.
Impose a browsing fee.
Browsing. Make this a moneymaker.
A browsing license.
A browsing license. That's great. What else?
Close the store.
I'm in the wrong business. Terrific. Other
Cater
ideas?
to illiterates.
Oh, the sample copy idea.
Put them higher up.
Higher up, out of reach.
Behind the counter.
Behind counter. Terrific. What else?
Young people must continually clap their hands while
Clap hands idea.
Put the, make them coin operated, like
Coin operated. Uh-huh.
Change-
That's how we make money, yes.
Change your need to keep them from being stolen, disorganized, or ruined.
What do I do?
Change your mindset.
I'll change my mindset.
Don't
They
worry,
couldn't
be
be
happy.
stolen.
Don't worry about it.
You're right, I guess I'm locked in.
Sell old magazines.
Whoa, sell old magazines.
Give away old things.
Give away magazines. Great, other ideas. How much time?
30 seconds.
Let's go. 4 more ideas.
Cater to illiterates.
Cater to others.
blind people only.
Blind idea. Store for blind people.
bring in a mediator.
Rail
What was that?
Bring in a mediator.
Mediator.
Mediating pit bull.
What was that?
A mediating pit bull.
A mediating pit bull.
Put the sign on that paper cuts available for magazines.
Ah,
Carry only magazines in Braille.
Cherry and Braille.
Time.
Time. Wow. Hey, this is good. How many ideas we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 51. We made it! Hey, what a group! Okay, how would you characterize the tone and the climate of the last 5 minutes? Stream of consciousness.
Silly.
Silly?
Unrealistic.
Unrealistic?
Fun.
Fun? Negative?
Put in for
Energetic?
Put in improvisation.
Improvisation.
Creative.
Creative.
Party atmosphere.
Party atmosphere.
Enthusiastic cooperation.
Enthusiastic cooperation.
Receptive to anything.
Receptive to anything. Many more positives than downsides. Now, obviously, in a real mediation, we're not going to have it quite as raucous. And you don't have a team of 40 coming in with ideas. But we're striving for a part of the spirit that we just had. A part of it. If you can achieve a fraction of the spirit that you just experienced, that is going to serve you well. Because to the point in back, what we're trying to do is have people, mediation can be an enjoyable experience. It's not court. It doesn't have to be point counterpoint in an adversarial situation. It can be an enjoyable problem-solving situation between people who have differences. And we can strive to cut the tension. And by the way, as a mediator, you are modeling the climate you want. And if you are there tense and serious and acting unnaturally, then people will reflect and model after you. And if you're there as a human being trying to serve two other human beings, and your natural personality comes out, you show warmth or humor or whatever is natural for you, let it come out and allow people to have a creative problem-solving experience. It doesn't always work. But if it works 30% of the time or 50% of the time, that's a tool, that's a strategy in your kit. It's that we're trying to achieve in a mediation. Now, let me close this down with an example. That's what we're talking about on step 3. Now we get to step 4, and in step 4, we have the needs identified, we have the options on the table. Now, what do we do with this list? That's great, but now what happens? Yeah,
Search for the practical.
Okay, let me give you a real example. Here is a mediation that I was in. This is actually not step 2, I think it's step 4. Our side, this is step 2. Real mediation, here's the setup. Apartment building, 2-story apartment building, the landlord's on the 2nd floor, tenants on the 1st floor. They come in and we go through our steps. I do the opening statement, I get the needs out, step 2, and I find out that the landlord is owed $350 by the tenant, that the landlord's son needs to be contained because he's a hooligan and making noise around the building all night, and by the way, the landlord's tenant's son stole the ladder. That's what his needs are. The tenant, her electricity has been shut off. She was pushed down a flight of stairs and thus came into mediation with a broken arm. She wants the tenant, so she wants an apology. She wants the tenant to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And by the way, there appears to be a lot of bedroom noise at night, keeping her up all night. That's what's on the table. We have done with step 2. Those are the issues. Okay? Step 3, we do our brainstorming. Did brainstorming here? Here's our brainstorm list here. I hope you can read it. And we just got a bunch of ideas out. Didn't make any difference whether they're good and bad. Some of these aren't so terrific, but they work for us. Pay $350. That's what the landlord wanted. Apologize to the tenant. That's what the tenant wanted. Send the son to reform school. Keep electricity on. Return the stolen ladder. She wanted him to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Interesting idea. Tenant, leave the building. Install insulation. You asked me to leave the store. I mean, some parallels there. Install insulation between the floors. Pay for the ladder. Keep prostitutes out, because as it was discovered, he was having ladies of the night join him. Bring a lawsuit. She could have brought a lawsuit for the arm. He could have brought a lawsuit for non-payment of rent, I guess. And the last one is do services in lieu of rent payment. What that means is she could... Pardon? I did not say in lieu of the prostitutes. She could do bookkeeping, she could do maintenance around the building, do the lawn, etc., etc. Okay. This is our brainstorm list. We are now done with step 3. Okay? We're now moving into step 4. We got this list on the board. How do you manage it? Reactions. What's your strategy now? Where do you go?
Caucus.
Caucus?
Reality check in caucus.
Okay, let's assume we reality check, and what are you going to reality check for?
Whether each party thinks any of those solutions are reasonable and they could live with them.
Okay, let's assume you could do it in caucus. Let's assume that you are still working with the group, and that's a tactical decision. In this case, I stayed with the group because we seem to be doing just fine. And we had already caucused to check out the needs. And these were pretty legitimate for them. So let's assume we're in the large group, but you could do caucus as well. What do you do?
I think what you could do is you could turn the, what you did is you encourage people to make positive comments. You could turn that around, especially if you had a pretty good spirit here. You could say, let's shoot this thing down and try to get as many negatives out about each one of these on the table. And what's going to happen is that there are going to be a lot of negatives about some of the more unfeasible ideas, and there are only going to be 1 or 2 negatives. Even of the good ideas, the ones that are going to fly, there will probably be a couple of negatives, but you'll be able to kind of demonstrate to the 2 groups that even though things aren't completely, they're not going to resolve everything. There's negatives to everything.
So we have the respond initiator, and your comment to us now, your instruction is?
Let's go back over this list.
We have this list
This
right
list
here.
here, I'm sorry. Let's go back over this list together and think of all the things that are wrong with all of these
Okay,
items.
reaction to that thought. We start out and beat up the list a little bit. Reaction.
I think it's going to be pretty tough to get them to stop.
So we're going to end up with a negative spiral of comments and so forth. Okay, then what would you do?
Well, I guess I'd ask them, I'd turn to them, to the one party and say, this person has suggested you do this. How do you feel about doing it? Or else I'd say, if they agree to do what you suggested, what would you do that they
Okay,
suggested?
so one of your strategies is try to get some sort of quid pro quo, something that's going to meet my needs and their needs if I'm the respondent initiator. So you want to try to get some balance. Where do you, so where would you start? Where would you theoretically in your mind try to start on this list? Or guide them?
I'd start with the rent.
You'd start with the rent. What would you say about the rent?
I guess I would ask the tenant under what circumstances would she be willing to pay the rent.
I'm not going to pay the rent at all. You see my arm? I'm not paying any rent. By the way, I think I'm going to add to this list, I want some medical expenses paid as well. I didn't put that down, but now that you mentioned that, I think I'm going to add that to my list. So we're now into, and by the way, I think it should be $325. I think really he owes me about $500 for medical expenses. Okay, now what?
I'd start with the electricity,
Why?
because it's a common human element. Both parties understand the need for it, and it strikes me as the greatest ground for concession.
You're putting your value system in there. It may not be as important to her. It may be summertime. She may not need it right now. She may be gone all the time.
Okay.
Ask her what she wants the most. Ask him what he wants the most.
Okay, very important what the question is. What's behind your solution is good. How do we get there? Is it what do you want most? Or is there another first question that's going to be?
Well, you're trying to get a common enemy.
Yeah.
Would be it as something you agree about.
Right. So the first question might be, what on this list would be easy for us to agree with? That would be our needs.
I think the latter.
Let's start with the easiest.
The latter.
Well, yes, sir.
You asked them. Your point was a good one. We don't necessarily want to pose our solution, but by asking them what on this list would be easy for us to get going and get some agreement on, what do you think they said? They said electricity and the ladder. Now when they said electricity, whose need does that mean? Tenant. Then what's your instruction? If you have this concession, then what do you ask? What might be something that would help the landlord, and the ladder was an easy one. Now what's beginning to happen? You're going to get some cooperation. Then you say, okay, what's next that we can click off this list? Now note, we're trying for easy early wins. And of course it's easier for me to say this, it doesn't always happen this easy. But we're trying for easy early wins and we're trying for a quid pro quo, something to meet this person's needs and meet this person's needs. Okay, what do you think happened in this session? What do you think the next concessions were? We got the ladder and we got the electricity. What do you think else was pretty easy? An apology. And I might add, we should not discount psychological concessions in mediation. They often are where the real ballgame is. And they are often discounted in the mediator's head as a viable solution. Yes, that was an easy one, and in fact, we got an apology from the landlord. So we got an apology, we got the landlord's needs met. What do you think the tenant gave in return? Where we got the tenant's needs met, what do you think was given to the landlord in return?
Promise to continue or something.
Yep, that was it. Now you can't always guarantee it, but she said, what if I ensure that after 10 o'clock, kid is not roaming around the building? Would that satisfy your need? And he said 9 o'clock. And she agreed to 9 o'clock. Now what? Now we still, what do you think then put the clincher on the exercise? The rent. But she didn't pay the full rent. Why? What was she able to do? Services in lieu. He, as it turned out, needed help around the building and some bookkeeping services. She was able to provide it. And the rent was knocked down.
What did they do about the bedroom?
The bedroom noise. A couple of the things just, sometimes you got stuff up here that's not really so important. She knew that wasn't realistic. The bedroom noise, just an irritant. It wasn't significant.
So then did you just ask at that point, is this satisfactory?
Then what you do is say, okay, here are the needs that we have met by doing these things. And keep the electricity on, we've apologized, the ladder's being returned, you're going to do such and such services at such and such time. That means that it's going to reduce the rent payment, and this figure was reduced down. Do we have an agreement? Is there anything else that we haven't dealt with that you're invested in dealing with? And if you sense hesitancy, you work it, or you might caucus and check it out. Depends upon your strategy, but that was the solution in this case. Now, why couldn't we start with rent payment first? Why would, what? It was the toughest, and in fact, we needed to get agreement and have this on the table to get this. This was your leverage to get that. This, in many ways, is like the position, the window open 1/4, 3/4, halfway. If you just stick with this, it's hard. You don't have enough leverage. And that's why brainstorming is so important. You need all these options on the table to be able to mix and match and get a solution. If you stick with one or two of these, you're not leveraging the discussion. You're not empowering the participants to get a good solution.
Was that brainstorming done individually or together?
This happened to be done together. More times than not, the ideas will often come out individually in caucus, and then I bring them together. It depends on your parties, and in some parties they can't do brainstorm. Not there, but it's a strategy that works many times.
Does the mediator elicit those solutions, or does the mediator suggest what? I mean,
Good question.
the disputants did not get the training, so what do they know? They did not come up with ideas. They were not given this. So who comes up with the brainstorming?
Reactions. The question is, does the mediator generate this list? And if not, who generates the list? What? The parties, you try to get the parties to put ideas on the table. It's okay for a mediator to add an idea, but when you add an idea, what do you have to be sure you do or not do?
Don't take a side.
Yeah, you're not selling your idea, you're just dumping it on like all the others and letting it go. It's all right to suggest some thoughts, but it's in the spirit, but the real power is trying to get them to put the ideas on the table. Yes?
I'm concerned when you expand the problem, that the woman who's injured by arm, by medical expenses, and pain and suffering. How do you handle that from the time that the issue is brought up?
In this case, it wasn't brought up at all.
How's that?
I was just kind of brainstorming.
What would you do?
Sometimes it is put on a table and that has to be factored into your solution. That just becomes another need. Pay medical expenses. And then you have to manage that.
Well, except, I don't know, I mean, there's issues that are actually presented and then issues that the person may have. If I would assume if the tenant says that the issue is the apology, and that's the issue with, the concern is the broken arm, but the issue is the apology, and that's what you're really working with. I would think, anyway.
Yeah. It's often very, if you just look at this list, you'd say, wow, broken arm. That's a big issue to deal with. It wasn't, because she in some ways contributed to it. She, you know, they were talking as it turned out, at the head of the stairs, and she was walking down, and she kind of tripped, and you know how these things happen, but that wasn't the issue. But if you look at it, you say, wow, we're going to have to deal with expenses and so forth. So it's very careful, very important that we don't let our own biases and our own imagination enter into what is the real issue. In many cases, an apology goes a long way.
How long did you have to wait once you asked them what's the easiest thing for us to get an agreement on? How long did you have to wait before one of them said something?
Good question. If I ask you this question, and let's say you're on the other side of the table, initiator, responder, I say, you know, this is a terrific list we got up. And you really worked well together getting it up. And by the way, when I say that, what am I trying to do? I'm bonding them. So I say that to them, I say, now let's see, what is easiest that we can work on in this list to help us move forward towards a solution? Then I stop. I'd like you to experience 20 seconds of silence. That's my question. What is easiest for us to work with so that we get a solution? Where do we start? Time. Where's the pressure? So my first strategy is just wait. Just be relaxed. People have to digest. People have to think. And use silence to work for you. So that's one tactic. Sometimes people come up with ideas quickly. Sometimes it's slowly. Sometimes you try a few different questions and you find that people aren't good at brainstorming or good at working these things. You may decide to go in the caucus. You know, you have different ways of working it. But silence is one tactic that often works. Yes?
During the silence, what do you do?
I look at them. I will give them space, but then look at them. Because an eye contact does what once in a while? I don't want to steer them into the ground. But by just looking at them, I'm saying, hey, I expect something. And then I'll look away and I'll look at you. And I'll look away and then look at you. You know, to try to just put some subtle expectation that we need some response.
So you're not going to doodle it.
I don't know, maybe I do. I need someone to observe me. I'm not sure. But I try not to put excessive pressure. Yes?
Can you say anything along the lines of, go ahead and take your time and think about it?
Yes, that's a good strategy. Sure. Just to make it okay. Absolutely. On one occasion, I asked people to actually write down some ideas. In fact, that's my last sheet. Different ways of getting ideas. Sometimes the mediator chips in. Sometimes we write out the silence. Sometimes, once they come up, and this is especially on the brainstorming part, I may just ask, someone will come up with an idea and I'll say, well, what else? Good. What else? On occasion, I will ask people to do silent writing. Instead of oral, I'll say, well, just take a couple minutes and write down some ideas on either the brainstorming part or write out some ideas on where we can begin to work out a solution here. What would be some of these ideas here that we could put together for a solution? Just take a moment and write some ideas down, especially if I thought they could write. Not everyone can write. Sometimes in the brainstorming session, I will say, assume for a moment that you have a magic wand and you could do anything and wish anything. What ideas would you put on the table? Yeah. But when you tell them they have a magic wand, what are you trying to do with that technique? Yeah, you're giving them permission to say anything, because that's just fantasy. Sometimes you can ask them to argue the other viewpoint. So what I'd like for you to do in this year is just for a moment, if you were the respondent, what would be some ideas you'd put on the table to solve this? And I'd ask them to go in the other person's shoes. Doesn't always work, it's not always appropriate. Sometimes if they're resistant, you can say, you know, it seems like we're having some difficulty getting some ideas that's going to move us toward a solution. What is the consequence of not reaching agreement? I don't like to use that, but sometimes I do. You can use caucus and so forth and so on. But there are a lot of different techniques that you can use to try to work the group either in the brainstorming or in the solution phase.
What's that?
Best alternative to negotiated agreement. Have you covered that yet? You're going to cover that in a little bit if you haven't yet. And sometimes what that is often is the same as consequences. If we don't have a negotiated agreement, what else is the potential consequence that could happen? What other scenarios could happen for you? Yes?
You find it a good technique to periodically remind them that they're voluntarily there to come to an agreement? You know, is that too much pressure on them?
Reactions. Do you remind people that they're there to come to an agreement? Do you keep reminding them that, let me remind you, and I know this is very, you have a lot of emotion in this, so I want to remind you, we're here to come to an agreement. Reactions to that?
No.
Why?
Too much pressure to force concession.
And they won't get an agreement that they will actually live up to.
Yeah? Yeah?
Remind them that they're, that they initially came to have an agreement, that you covered in your ground.
I wouldn't preclude that. What I will do on occasion is say, it is not always easy to come to an agreement quickly. And so, experiencing a little frustration at this point is very natural in the process. You just don't come to agreement in 45 minutes. And I make it legitimate for them to have difficulty and to experience a step back and two forward. And I make it sound, and it really is, that it is part of the process to have a step back here or to run into some roadblocks. And that's fine. We're going to work it through. So my point of view is always that we're going to make it. And I legitimize their frustration. Yes, please.
When and where the parties told that they are coming to mediation in order to reach an agreement, because each party that comes is convinced that he is right and that he has all the rights on his side. And what people are most familiar with is an adversarial situation like in a court and things like that. So they're convinced that they're going to come out there right. And when are they told that this is a give and take kind of a process?
How would you respond to that question? When are they told that this is a give and take process? When do they know this? Opening statement is sure one good place to set that expectation. How else do you set that expectation?
Modeling.
By doing?
Well, you don't respond when someone says, I'm right, you're wrong. You keep negotiating rather than decide who's right, who's wrong.
And you're modeling as a mediator, and you're also doing things that are bonding them together throughout the process. For example, when you start out, applaud them for being at the table. That's bonding. When they are identifying their needs, you're applauding them for being open and listening and identifying needs. When they are brainstorming, you're applauding them for working great as a team getting ideas out. Every opportunity, for me anyway, that I can bond them together and tell them they are doing things that are moving us forward, that is letting them know that they are working together.
But at no point at the beginning, when you first meet, do you let them know in some kind of statement that this is not the adversary?
Yes, in the opening statement. In the opening statement, my verbiage, and everyone's is going to be different, my verbiage is around, I applaud you for being here. Our goal is to end up with a solution that meets your needs and meets your needs, and my expectation is that we're going to get there. Thank you. One last question, and we have to wait.
The case manager, does the case manager prep them for the mediation process at all? In reference to what her question is? about,
Probably not, but you can respond to that better.
Is the case manager present what?
In terms of the expectation that this is a win-win exercise, we're looking for good problem solving, and we want you to work together.
because that's the first contact they have with the,
In cases in courtrooms, that's going to be non-existent to very minimal. For cases not in courtroom settings, they'll have to talk to a case manager as long as they would choose to. And the case manager will try to give them as much information as possible. Keep in mind though that these folks often interact with case managers. They're angry in their views, and their ability to take information is influenced by those factors as well. So we try to give them as much information as they are willing to accept. For cases that are not connected to courts. Connected to courts, there may be some that may not.
I wouldn't assume that the case manager will have set all the kind of climate ground rules that you will want for the session. I didn't read it. You've been great. Thank you. You're going to have a chance today 2 or 3 times to begin working on some of these approaches. Best to you as you work through that. Thank you.
For that, but it was necessary so that we can have a smooth day before us. You'll go into your simulation and you have to go from here to one of several floors that we have control of then. And on that way, on the way there, you might be able to hit a bathroom. But I would encourage you to get to that room as quickly as possible because that's leading into your simulation time. Once the simulation is over, at 11:45, you can go straight to lunch, and we'll be back on schedule 11:45. So 11:45 to 12:45 will be lunch. A couple comments about simulations. What is going to happen is you all are going to go into a room and you're going to go there with 3 other trainees and an observer, either a staff member or a senior mediator. And you are going to go through an actual mediation experience. We are going to give, there's sort of 3 labels for the trainees. There's the mediator, there is the initiator, and there is the respondent. Now what we're going to do for the initiators and respondents is we're going to give you a sheet of paper that tells you who you are and tells you what your issues are, your concerns are, what your positions are initially, and how they develop throughout the mediation. So you're going to get, in a sense, a little script. And as mediators, you're on your own. Just as in all mediations, it's you, man. This is your ball game. You bring with you your notes. Feel free to sort of bring your notes that you've written about the opening statement with you. But this is your first experience. And those trainers back there, those are some serious folks. And they want y'all to stay in your roles. If you're a party, take that serious. You may be asked to be a cranky person. You may be asked to be a real accommodating person, a real nice person that will pretty much do anything. So you may get some coaching from the trainers. You get some coaching certainly from the documents that we're going to give you. I would ask you all to sort of actually step out of yourself and become that person, that initiator, that respondent, based on what that document says. Actually be that person. Y'all need to take those seriously so you can challenge yourselves now. Because those folks out there, when you're out there meeting real cases, they don't care that this is your first time. They don't care that you're just starting out. They're going to be real. And in an effort to prepare you for that, be real here too. You're going to begin your simulation, and the observer is going to help you get started. And once it gets started, you need to stay in character till you finish. The observers will tell you when it's time to finish. As I said before, don't feel you need to race through the whole simulation. Just take it in its natural pace, get as far as you can. You're not expected to reach a resolution in these simulations. You're expected to just go through the process. And so don't worry about time. Just go through and begin to develop your style, begin to sort of digest this material, and become immediate to your first experience. Once the observer stops you, they're going to chat with you for about 20 minutes or so. They're going to tell you some real positive things, and they're going to tell you some things that you can improve upon. And they're going to do that while the initiator and respondent are there. initiators and respondents, this is an opportunity for you to sort of watch somebody and get a sense of how they're doing, and then hear an experienced trainer's thoughts on how that went. So you can learn from the experience as well. It's all just from different perspectives. What I'm going to do in sort of assigning roles is I'm going to identify the trainer. And what I want you to do, I'm going to identify the trainer, and then the mediator, then the initiator, and the respondent. What I want you to do is when I identify the trainer, start reading out your names, take a look to see who that person is, and remember that face, because when we're done talking, you have to go up to that person. That person is going to lead you to whatever room you're going to be in. The way the CBA is structured, it's not set up for NJC and our training capabilities. We're on the 4th floor, 5th floor, 2nd floor, 3rd floor. We're all over the block. And the trainers are going to be in the know. They're going to have the room name, and they're going to lead you to your room. So you need to hook up with your trainer. And I recommend that you make contact before you leave this room, because once people start moving around, it can get really confusing. After you're going to conclude the simulation at 11:45, at that point go straight to lunch. Trainers, 11:45, you need to stop, otherwise you're stepping on their lunchtime. Get mad at your trainers if they run you over, don't get mad at me.
Is this room going to be open so we can step in?
This room is going to be used for a simulation. There is no guarantees on security. You can either take your stuff, leave your stuff. There's going to be people here while you're off doing simulations. There's going to be a simulation going on here. And if you come back at lunchtime, I would imagine things will be said, but the risk is yours. Now, if we're ready to begin,